I'm Amanda Wilson, 32 years old, and last Christmas changed everything for me. After working harder than ever, I came home expecting my family to finally notice my progress. Instead, I sat at the table watching my younger sister, Heather, unwrap keys to a brand new Audi. My gift, a small box holding a pink piggy bank and a single-dollar bill. My mother smiled and said, "That's our contribution to your future home, sweetie." That night, I packed my suitcase and left without saying goodbye. As I drove off, my phone buzzed with a message. Before I tell you where I went that evening, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happened next in my journey toward self-worth. Growing up as the oldest daughter in the Wilson family meant learning to be invisible. From the outside, our home in suburban Portland looked picture-perfect, neatly trimmed hedges, seasonal wreaths, and smiling neighbors who never saw what was happening inside. The pattern started early, when I was 7, and Heather was just born. The attention shift was immediate. My straight A's earned quick nods, while Heather got ice cream celebrations for participation ribbons. On my 10th birthday, my parents forgot to buy a cake because they were busy shopping for Heather's nursery furniture. When I cried at dinner, my mother stuck a candle in a dinner roll and called it a birthday cake. "Amanda, you're old enough to understand your sister needs more attention." My father often told me I was expected to be the responsible one, and so I became just that. By 12, I was cooking simple meals while my mom focused on Heather. By 14, I was babysitting regularly so my parents could take her to dance recitals and shopping trips. Meanwhile, my debate team finals never seemed important enough for them to attend. "We know you'll do great without us there," my mother would say, patting my shoulder. "You're our independent girl." Independence became my idea, by choice, but by necessity. I learned to handle homework on my own, navigate college applications, and arrange transportation without help. Heather, on the other hand, received driving lessons from Dad, tutoring when her grades slipped, and constant praise for average achievements. Graduation highlighted these differences perfectly. My parents threw me a party because it was expected, but spent the evening bragging about Heather's middle school art project. My admission to State University with a scholarship was mentioned in passing. College brought more of the same, only with financial consequences. I worked 20 hours a week at a coffee shop while keeping a spot on the dean's list, and spent summers at retail jobs to cover tuition. My parents, meanwhile, paid Heather's full tuition when she enrolled 3 years later, saying art programs were too demanding to allow part-time work. I graduated with honors in architecture and $27,000 in student loans. At my ceremony, my parents arrived late due to Heather's minor car accident. They missed me crossing the stage, but made sure Heather stood between them and all the family. Photos. My first job paid modestly, but it offered growth. I rented a small apartment, furnished it second-hand, and budgeted carefully while paying off loans. At family gatherings, I was asked when I'd find a real job or settle down, as if my career didn't matter. Heather, with average grades, graduated after my parents paid a consultant to build her portfolio. They rewarded her with 3 months in Europe and later subsidized her trendy apartment while she found herself. Last October, after 5 years of hard work, I earned a promotion to senior designer and a meaningful salary increase. I called my parents right away, hoping this milestone would finally make them proud. "That's nice, honey," my mom replied distractedly. "Did I tell you Heather is dating a doctor now?" "Well, a medical student, but still." Even with that disappointment, I held on to hope. Christmas was near, and I decided to buy thoughtful gifts for everyone, stretching my budget to get things I knew they'd love. Maybe showing love through generosity would close the gap I'd felt all my life. The silver-wrapped packages in my trunk weren't just gifts. They were one last attempt to earn the recognition I had always wanted. That as I drove the 120 miles home for Christmas, I let myself imagine this year might be different. Maybe my promotion would finally matter. Maybe the expensive wallet for Dad and the cashmere scarf for Mom would show them my success and gratitude. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would change things. I was 32 years old and still chasing my parents' approval, a fact that should have been warning enough. I pulled into the driveway behind my father's SUV on December 24th. The house looked exactly the same as every holiday before. Multicolored lights along the roof, an inflatable snowman swaying in the yard, and a wreath with a red velvet bow on the door. The familiarity should have been comforting, but instead, my stomach tightened with the same anxiety that always came with family visits. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She wore her Christmas apron over a red sweater and smelled of cinnamon and vanilla. "Amanda, you made it," she exclaimed, giving me a quick hug. Come in, come in. Your father's watching the game, and Heather will be here soon with Kyle." I followed her inside, noticing how nothing had changed. The same artificial tree, the same nativity set on the mantel, the same stockings lined up by birth order. Robert, Diane, Amanda, Heather. "I've got your room ready," Mom said, leading me upstairs. We had to move some storage boxes in there, but I cleared a path to the bed. The bed in my childhood room was barely recognizable. It had become part guest space, part storage. One wall was stacked with boxes labeled tax documents and holiday decorations. The twin bed now had a comforter I'd never seen before, and the desk where I once studied was covered in my mother's sewing projects. "It's just for sleeping," Mom said, catching my reaction. "Heather's room is exactly as she left it, of course. She stays over much more often than you." I nodded, placing my overnight bag on the bed. "This is fine, Mom. Thanks. Good. Now come help me with dinner. The sweet potatoes need peeling." Downstairs, I slipped into the familiar role of kitchen assistant while she took charge. I had been peeling potatoes for about 15 minutes when the front door swung open. "We're here," Heather's voice rang out. Kyle brought wine. She appeared in the doorway, effortlessly stylish in designer jeans and a green sweater that matched her eyes identical to mine, though mine had seen nights spent worrying over student loans. Behind her stood Kyle, tall and confident in his medical student charm, holding wine bottles worth more than my weekly grocery budget. "Amanda," Heather greeted, giving me a quick hug before turning to Mom. "Wait until you see what Kyle got me for Christmas. I'm dying to tell you, but he insists it's a surprise." Mom immediately abandoned the turkey to focus on Heather. "At least give me a hint." I kept peeling potatoes, listening as their excitement filled the room. My father entered from the living room, passing right by me to wrap Heather in a hug. "There's my girl," he said warmly, before noticing Kyle. Extending his hand, he added, "Good to see you, son. Come watch the game. The Vikings are up by 7. "Dad," I called. "Hi." He turned, noticing me for the first time. "Oh, Amanda, when did you get here?" "About an hour ago." "Good, good." He nodded, then asked, "How's the job?" "Great, actually. I was promoted to senior designer in October. I'm managing my own projects now. Drawing buildings pays the bills." "Huh," he said with a distracted smile, already guiding Kyle to the living room. "Come on, son, you're missing the action." The men disappeared while Heather poured wine for herself and Mom, without offering me any. I turned back to the potatoes, wondering why I'd expected anything different. By 6 o'clock, Aunt Linda and Uncle Steve arrived with my cousins Jessica and Brian. The noise in the house grew, and I found myself as usual taking coats, refilling drinks, and replenishing appetizers. "So, Amanda," Aunt Linda said, cornering me by the cheese plate, "still single. Your biological clock isn't getting younger." "I'm focusing on my career," I replied automatically. "Career is fine, but family is everything," she said, patting my arm. "Look at your sister and her doctor boyfriend. She's on the right path." The rest of the evening followed the same pattern. No one mentioned my promotion. Instead, I fielded questions about dating, with occasional suggestions about freezing my eggs just in case. Later, Mom asked me to help set the table with the family china, delicate floral plates that had belonged to my grandmother. As I placed them carefully, I remembered breaking one when I was 11. My father had grounded me for 2 weeks, calling me careless. Yet when Heather broke several years later, my parents brushed it off as an accident. The memory must have shown on my face, because Mom paused. "Something wrong?" "No," I said quickly. "Just being careful with the plates." "Good. They're irreplaceable." Except, of course, when Heather broke them. Christmas Eve dinner was, as always, a polished performance of tradition. The turkey was golden, the side dishes plentiful, and the conversation focused almost entirely on Heather's art projects and Kyle's medical school journey. When I mentioned a challenging sustainable office project I had just completed, Dad quickly redirected the conversation to Kyle's residency plans. After dinner, it was time for the yearly viewing of It's a Wonderful Life. As usual, Heather sat comfortably between our parents on the couch. Kyle took the recliner, while I ended up on the floor, leaning against the coffee table. As George Bailey realized the value of his life, I couldn't help wondering if I disappeared, would anyone in my family even notice? Would there be a gap, or just a smoother picture without me? When the movie ended, I helped clean up while Heather showed Kyle old photo albums. She appeared in nearly every picture, while I was mostly in the background, sometimes half cropped out. That night, I went to bed in my storage room bedroom, surrounded by boxers that had more space in the house than my childhood memories. Tomorrow was Christmas Day. One last chance for something to feel different. I slept fitfully, dreaming of empty stockings and unreachable gifts. Christmas morning dawned bright and cold, sunlight bouncing off fresh snow. I woke early, as I always did, and headed to the kitchen to start breakfast, an unspoken expectation. Amanda handles breakfast while everyone else sleeps in. I mixed pancake batter, fried bacon, and brewed coffee, laying everything out buffets. Slowly, the smell of food drew the others downstairs. Heather came down last, stretching and yawning in her usual exaggerated way. Her hair was somehow perfectly styled despite just waking up. Kyle followed closely, his arm wrapped around her waist. "I'm starving," Heather announced as she filled her plate generously. "Amanda, you should have woken me earlier. You know how I get when I'm hungry." I did know. Everyone knew. Heather's hunger always demanded immediate attention, while I had grown used to putting my own needs aside. After breakfast, we gathered by the Christmas tree for the gift exchange. The tradition had always been youngest to oldest, meaning Heather went first. But this year, with Kyle present, he opened his gifts before her. He seemed genuinely grateful for everything he received, including the leather card holder I had chosen for him. Heather's turn followed. At 25, she still ripped through wrapping paper with childlike excitement. She opened my gift concert tickets to her favorite band, murmured a quick thanks, then immediately moved on. The tickets had cost nearly half my monthly spending budget. Yet her reaction was no different than when I gave her a $10 candle the year before. My turn came after the cousins. I opened each gift carefully, expressing thanks for the scarf from Aunt Linda, bath products from my cousin, and a department store gift card from my parents. All generic items, nothing personal, nothing that reflected who I was or the promotion I had been proud to share. Throughout the exchange, I noticed my father checking his watch and sharing looks with my mother. When the last gift was opened, he stood up, cleared his throat, and smiled broadly. "This year, we have one more surprise," he said. "Heather, your mother and I are so proud of your artistic achievements and bright future. We wanted to do something special for you." He handed Heather a small gold-wrapped box. Inside was a car key with the Audi logo. Heather shrieked, jumping in excitement. "No way. Are you serious? Come see," my father said, leading us all outside. There in the driveway was a brand new white Audi A4, decorated with a massive red bow. From the features I could see, it easily cost more than my annual salary. "You deserve this, sweetheart," my mother said, hugging Heather as she bounced around the car. "You'll need reliable transportation for your new gallery internship." The same unpaid internship arranged through my parents' connections, the one Heather complained about because it started too early in the morning. Kyle snapped photos while my parents beamed proudly. I stood on the porch, arms crossed against the cold, feeling invisible once again. Back inside, as we warmed up by the fireplace, my mother suddenly said, "Oh, we almost forgot. Amanda, we have something special for you too." For a fleeting moment, hope stirred. Maybe they had saved my gift for last. Maybe they had noticed my hard work. She handed me a small box, wrapped in leftover birthday paper. It was nearly weightless. Inside was a pink ceramic piggy bank and a $1 bill. I stared, waiting for an explanation. "That's our contribution to your future home," my mother said warmly, as if it were a treasured gift. "You mentioned wanting to buy a house someday. Every journey starts with one step." The room went silent. Even Aunt Linda, usually quick to fill awkward pauses, said nothing. "Wow, thank you," I managed. "You're welcome, sweetie," my mother replied. "At your age, it's important to start thinking about settling down. Heather's younger, she has more time, but you should really start planting roots." Heather glanced at her manicure and added, "You should move out of that tiny apartment, Amanda. It's kind of sad for someone your age." My apartment, the one I paid for entirely on my own. Unlike Heather, whose rent was covered by our parents, the apartment none of them had visited because it was too inconvenient. "I need some fresh air," I said, standing up. No one stopped me as I stepped outside. Snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked to the old maple tree where my childhood swings still hung. I sat down, the cold chains biting through my gloves, and finally let the tears fall. 32 years of trying to matter. For 32 years, I tried to earn the love that should have been unconditional. For 32 years, I watched Heather receive everything I had longed for, telling myself each time that maybe next time would be different. The piggy bank and single dollar weren't just thoughtless gifts, they carried a clear message: you're on your own, and you always have been. Sitting on the swing in the cold, jeans damp, tears freezing on my face, something inside me finally broke. But within that breaking came clarity. This family dynamic would never change. It was too ingrained, too comfortable for everyone else. If I wanted something different, I had to create it myself. I stayed outside until my fingers went numb and the tears subsided. Then, with sudden certainty, I realized I couldn't go back into that house and keep pretending. Something had to change, and if my family wouldn't, then I must. Inside, the house was exactly as I'd left it. Dirty breakfast dishes piled in the sink, Heather chatting upstairs about her new car, my father engrossed in a football game. No one had noticed I was gone. No one had checked on me. Quietly, I climbed the stairs to my storage room bedroom and sat on the bed. I called my best friend Samantha. She answered cheerfully, "Merry Christmas." My voice cracked as I said, "It happened again. Worse than ever." I explained the Carversest piggy bank situation, struggling to stay composed. Samantha's outrage was immediate. "A piggy bank while your sister gets an Audi? That's not just unfair, Amanda, that's cruel." "I can't do this anymore," I whispered. "Then don't," she replied simply. "My guest room is yours as long as you need it. Seattle's just 3 hours from Portland. Your company has an office here. Make the move." Her words struck me harder than expected. I could leave not just for the day, but for good. I could put distance between myself and years of disappointment. I hesitated, clinging to Christmas traditions, but then asked myself, what exactly was I protecting? The illusion of harmony, the ritual of being diminished. "Christmas will happen with or without you," Samantha said gently. "The real question is whether you want to keep feeling this way when you have other options." After hanging up, I sat in silence. My company had already offered me the chance to transfer to Seattle, which I'd declined to stay close to family. My lease was month to month. The only thing keeping me here was an emotional bond that had never been returned. I opened my suitcase, not just packing the clothes I'd brought, but also gathering small tokens from my childhood: my graduation tassel, a college photo album, a wooden box my grandfather had made. Digging deeper, I found old journals filled with teenage entries, page after page of confusion, hurt, and self-blame, all tied to my parents' favoritism. Each one promised I'd try harder, do better, just to earn the love Heather received effortlessly. The thought of confronting them now was exhausting. It would only bring denial, gaslighting, or subtle dismissal. Instead, I chose to channel that energy into building something new. I wrote a short note on stationery: "I'm returning to Seattle today." The difference between Heather's gift and mine made some things clear. I need space to reflect on our family dynamic and whether I want it to be part of my future. Please don't contact me for a while, Amanda. No apologies. No long explanations. Just a boundary, maybe the first I'd ever set with them. I placed the note on the counter and gathered my belongings. The living room glowed with Christmas lights, my family still watching TV. No one looked up as I passed. In the kitchen, Heather's childhood artwork still covered the fridge. The growth chart stopped tracking me at age 10, but continued for her until college. Her internship letter was pinned to the board while nothing of mine, not even my recent promotion, was displayed. This house carried no sign that I had ever mattered. Outside, I loaded my suitcase into my old Honda, the car I'd bought entirely on my own. Heather's brand new Audi, with its red bow still attached, sat gleaming in the driveway. I placed the piggy bank on my dashboard, a reminder of why I was leaving and why I couldn't look back. Snow fell softly as I pulled away. Through the window, my family sat silhouetted against the TV, unaware that their oldest daughter was driving out of their lives. The mix of grief and relief was overwhelming. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't stop. For the first time in 32 years, I was choosing myself. 3 blocks away, I pulled over and set Samantha's address in my GPS. 3 hours to Seattle. 3 hours to a new beginning. Merging onto the highway, I finally admitted what I had always known. They don't love me the way I need to be loved, and that's not my fault. Saying the words felt like breaking a spell. Decades of effort to earn love that never came began to lift off me. I turned on the radio, avoiding Christmas music, and focused on the road ahead. 2 hours into the drive, snow thickened and forced me to slow down. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, expecting Samantha. I glanced down. It was my mother. The text read, "Don't forget to pay the utility bills due on the 28th. Not, where are you? Not, are you safe?" Just a reminder about bills I had never once forgotten. Bills that symbolized the independence she had mocked with that piggy bank. I stared in disbelief until a car horn jolted me back. 10 minutes later, another buzz, this time from my father. "Internet payment processes tomorrow. Make sure there's enough in your account." Again, no concern for my well-being, only financial reminders, as if my only worth was being responsible, the role they had forced on me since childhood. While Heather was spared, the phone started ringing. Again, this time it was my mother. I let it go to voicemail and listened as she left a message in a tone that sounded more irritated than concerned. "Amanda, where did you go? We're about to have dessert, and your aunt is asking for you. This is very inconsiderate." It struck me as though my breaking point should have been scheduled more conveniently for the family. More calls followed, which I ignored. The voicemails shifted from annoyance to disbelief. "Your note is overly dramatic," my mother said in her second message. "I don't understand why you would walk out on Christmas over a small gift." The piggy bank was thoughtful. Not every gift has to be expensive to matter. Then came my father. "Amanda, your mother is upset now. I don't know what has gotten into you, but this behavior is childish. Call us back immediately." Finally, Heather chimed in. "Way to ruin Christmas, Amanda. Mom and Dad did nothing wrong. You're just jealous of my car, and that's selfish. They've always given you everything you needed." Each message cut deeper. Even now, they couldn't see me or my pain. My feelings were dismissed, their actions defended. It was never about how their choices had affected me all these years, only about how my reaction inconvenienced them. I took the next exit, no longer trusting myself to keep driving through the storm of snow and emotions. A roadside diner glowed warmly in the darkness, its flickering neon sign reading Gloria's all-day breakfast. I parked and went inside, looking for warmth and a brief escape. The diner was nearly empty on Christmas night. An elderly waitress, with silver hair and kind eyes, approached my booth. "Merry Christmas, honey. Traveling in this weather?" She set a menu down and poured coffee without asking. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She studied me for a moment, before saying softly, "Looks like you could use more than coffee. Kitchen's still open if you'd like something hot." "Thank you," I managed, my voice cracking slightly. "Just the coffee for now." She gave me a small nod and stepped away. I wrapped my hands around the mug, staring into the dark liquid as though it might hold answers. My phone buzzed again, another message from my mother. "Your behavior is very hurtful to your father and me, after everything we've done for you." Everything they'd done, bare minimum parenting, while showering Heather with advantages. Always the same message. I was never quite enough, never worthy of equal love or support. Expected to be endlessly grateful for scraps while Heather received plenty. Something inside me finally broke, and I began to cry quiet, shaking sobs, muffled with a napkin. The waitress returned, this time sliding into the booth across from me without asking. She pushed a plate with a slice of pie toward me. "On the house," she said. "I don't know what you're going through, but no one should cry alone on Christmas." Her simple kindness undid me. I cried harder, decades of buried pain pouring out in a diner booth before a stranger who showed more care than my family ever had. "I left my family today," I finally said, wiping my eyes. "For good, I think." Her name tag read Gloria. She nodded knowingly. "I walked away from mine when I was 27. Hardest and best thing I ever did." "Does it get easier?" I asked. "The guilt fades," she replied. "The relief grows. Eventually, you build something better." We talked as I ate the pie with its perfect crust. Gloria shared her own story of family dysfunction and the life she had built afterward. She was 72 now, had owned the diner for 3 decades, and surrounded herself with a chosen family of friends who celebrated holidays together. "Blood makes you related," she said. "Love and respect make you family. Some people are lucky enough to have both. The rest of us have to find our true family along the way." By the time I finished my pie and a second cup of coffee, the snow had slowed to light flurries. Gloria insisted I take a slice to go and made me promise to call someone when I arrived safely. "This storm's getting worse tonight," she warned. "There's a decent motel 2 exits up if you need to stop." I thanked her, paid for the coffee, despite her protests, and left a tip that widened her eyes. Some gestures deserved recognition, a lesson my family had never grasped. Balked. In my car, I checked the forecast. Gloria was right. The storm was expected to worsen. I called Samantha. "Hey," I said when she answered. "I'm about 100 miles south of Seattle, but the weather's bad. I think I'll stop for the night." "Definitely," she agreed. "Safety first. I'll have the guest room ready when you get here tomorrow." Taking Gloria's advice, I found the motel and checked in. The room was simple but clean, just a bed, dresser, and small bathroom. I sat cross-legged on the bed, finally letting myself think about what I had done and what came next. Opening my laptop, I began drafting an email to my supervisor, requesting a transfer to the Seattle office. My reason was simple: family circumstances. I started researching apartments in Seattle, making lists of neighborhoods, calculating budgets, and mapping out a plan. The practical tasks steadied me, giving shape to my vague decision. By midnight, I had a basic roadmap for my new life: transfer paperwork ready to submit, 3 apartment viewings booked for the week ahead, and a checklist of items I needed to collect from my Portland place. That night, I fell asleep to the sound of wind outside my window, carrying away the last remnants of the life I had tolerated for too long. Morning arrived with clear skies, but freezing temperatures. After a quick breakfast at the motel restaurant, I called my supervisor Ivan, though it was December 26th. "Amanda, everything okay?" she asked, surprised by a holiday call. "I need to request that transfer to Seattle," I explained. "We talked about it during my promotion. Family circumstances changed suddenly. I can work remotely until the transfer is approved." To my relief, she was understanding. "Seattle's been asking for someone with your skill set. I can make this happen by January 15th. Will that work?" One major hurdle cleared. But when I got back to my car, it made an ominous clicking sound before finally starting. 10 miles down the highway, the engine began making a troubling noise. I took the next exit into a small town called Maplewood, and found an auto shop still open despite the holiday week. The mechanic, a middle-aged man named Marcus with grease-stained hands and kind eyes, inspected the car while I waited nervously in the office. "After 20 minutes, he said, "the alternator is failing. I can fix it, but I'll need to order the part. 2 days, maybe 3, with the holiday." I must have looked alarmed, because he added quickly, "There's a good hotel nearby within walking distance, and I'll give you a fair price." Another delay, another expense, but also another test of my new resolution: facing problems head on, instead of silently enduring them. "Thank you, Marcus," I said. "I appreciate your honesty." While waiting for repairs, I explored Maplewood, a small town of Victorian buildings and holiday-decorated shops. At a coffee shop, I opened my laptop and began setting boundaries with my family. I blocked their numbers, set up email filters, and removed them from social media. Each step was painful but freeing, like lancing a wound so it could heal. By December 29th, with my car fixed and the roads clear, I finally reached Seattle. Samantha met me at her apartment with a hug so fierce it nearly knocked me over. "Welcome to your new life," she said, helping me carry my bags inside. That night, we sat on her couch drinking wine and talking until 3 a.m. I cried, laughed, and raged about years of accumulated hurts. Samantha listened without judgment, offering validation instead of dismissal. "The worst part," I told her, "is that a part of me still hopes they'll realize what they've done and apologize." "How pathetic is that?" "Not pathetic," Samantha said firmly. "Human. We're wired to want connection with our parents. Accepting when it's unhealthy takes time." I fell asleep in her guest room, exhausted but peaceful. For the first time, I had chosen my own well-being over my family's demands. Seattle in January brought constant rain and the start of rebuilding. My first week with Samantha was spent decompressing, sleeping late, walking under my umbrella, and slowly recognizing the emotional damage I had long normalized. My phone stayed silent, thanks to the blocks, though emails piled up in the filtered folder. Subject lines ranged from "your behavior is unacceptable" to "are you safe?" to bills past due. I skimmed occasionally but didn't respond. giving myself permission to heal before engaging. With Samantha's encouragement, I explored Seattle neighborhoods during breaks in the rain. The city felt transitional, neither Portland nor completely new, but a middle ground fitting for my own in-between state. One evening over takeout, I shared the news. The transfer paperwork came through. I start at the Seattle office Monday. The calls for celebration, she said, pouring more wine. To new beginnings. My first week at the office exceeded expectations. My colleagues were welcoming, and the creative director genuinely valued my portfolio. For the first time, I felt my contributions were recognized without comparison or condition. We've got a major pitch next month, the director told me. I want you to lead the sustainability components. Your work on the Portland Eco Office project is exactly what we need. Recognition, opportunity, trust, simple, professional courtesies that felt revolutionary after years of being overlooked. With my career stabilizing, I focused on finding my own apartment. Samantha had been a tremendous support, but I needed independence. After several viewings, I chose a one-bedroom in Capitol Hill, slightly pricier than Portland, but filled with natural light and walking distance to work. Perfect for my architectural sketches. This place is definitely you, Samantha said while helping me set up furniture. I can already see your personality here. My personality not overshadowed by Heather, not defined as the responsible counterpart, but fully my own. 3 weeks later, my family discovered my new location when a colleague tagged me at a networking event on social media. The messages poured in new numbers, voicemails, texts. Amanda, this has gone on long enough, my father said. Your mother is beside herself with worry. This silent treatment is childish. My mother shifted the narrative. My blood pressure is through the roof from this stress. Do you want me to get sick? Heather, predictably, made it about herself. My car keeps making a weird noise and Dad can't afford the dealer because he's stressed about you. Thanks a lot. Every message tried to pull me back into the old role, the dutiful daughter, the problem solver, the one who should sacrifice her needs for harmony. I drafted dozens of replies but sent none. Instead, I printed the messages and brought them to therapy with Dr. Keller, a compassionate specialist in family trauma. After reading them aloud, she asked, "What do you notice?" "They're all about how my absence affects them," I said. None acknowledged why I left. Exactly, she nodded. That pattern sounds familiar. It's the story of my whole life, I admitted. Over the following weeks, therapy became my anchor, helping me process years of neglect while learning to hold firm boundaries. Dr. Keller reminded me, you cannot make people give what they don't have. Your responsibility is to honor your truth, not reshape yourself to make others comfortable. By February, I was building a life outside of family ties. I joined an architectural society, a neighborhood book club, and even started a pottery class. I had always wanted to try. Slowly, I was creating a community that valued me for who I was, not in comparison to anyone else. Professionally, I thrived. Our Westside development pitch succeeded, largely thanks to my sustainability designs. Senior management recognized my work, and I received a bonus that finally allowed me to replace my second-hand furniture. In March, my director shared more good news. We're nominating you for the Emerson Green Design Award. Your wildlife corridor integration was exactly what the committee looks for. Professional validation felt new but extraordinary, like wearing a coat that finally fit. As my professional confidence grew, I also strengthened my personal boundaries. I began responding more selectively to family messages, keeping replies short, factual, and free from emotional pull. To my mother's increasingly frantic emails, I simply wrote, "I am safe and well. I need time to process our relationship. I will reach out when I am ready for more communication." This calm approach quickly escalated matters. Relatives I hardly spoke to sent guilt-laden messages about breaking my poor mother's heart. My father's emails became stern lectures about duty and gratitude. Heather alternated between accusations and pleas, depending on her mood. Then came the ultimate tactic. My Aunt Linda informed me that my mother had been hospitalized with chest pains, strongly suggesting my choices were to blame. In the past, I would have abandoned my boundaries, rushed home, and accepted guilt. Instead, I called the hospital directly, confirmed she had been treated for indigestion, and discharged the same day, and then continued on with my life without guilt. In April, just as I was settling into my rhythm in Seattle, my father appeared unexpectedly at my office building. I spotted him in the lobby as I returned from lunch, looking more worn than I remembered, clutching a manila envelope and scanning the crowd. My first instinct was to avoid him. Instead, I walked over. "Dad," I said calmly, "how did you find my workplace?" He seemed startled, then composed himself. "Your cousin in HR. She checked your transfer records. A privacy breach I plan to address later." "Why are you here?" I asked. "We need to talk," he said firmly. "Not through messages." I pointed across the street. 20 minutes, that's all I can spare during my workday." We sat in a crowded cafe, ensuring the conversation would stay civil. An untouched Americano sat before him while I held a cup of green tea. "Your mother and I don't understand why you've done this," he began. "Leaving over a Christmas gift feels extreme, even for you." The familiar criticism almost made me smile. "It wasn't about the gift," I said quietly. "That was only the last example of a lifelong pattern." "What pattern?" he asked, genuinely confused. "Heather receives a $35,000 car. I receive a piggy bank with a single dollar. Can you really not see the imbalance?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Heather needed a car. You already have your Honda. A car I bought myself. Just as I paid for my education, my rent, my entire life. Meanwhile, you and Mom gave Heather everything. That's not fair. Amanda, we raised you, put food on the table, gave you a home. You did the bare minimum for me, while giving Heather every advantage: tuition, rent, trips, now a luxury car. You were always responsible," he countered. "You never needed help." "I needed recognition," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I needed to know I mattered as much as she did, that my efforts were seen, that I was loved equally, not just assigned the role of the responsible one, while Heather was treated as precious." My father stared into his coffee for a long time. When he finally looked up, his expression was conflicted. "We never meant to make you feel less important. We are proud of you. You've always been so capable, so independent. Independence forced on a child isn't a gift, Dad. It's abandonment." He had no response. We sat in silence until I checked my watch and stood. "I need to get back to work. I have a client meeting. Will you come home?" he asked. "Your mother misses you." "This is my home now," I replied. "I'm building a good life here, and we're not part of it." His voice carried genuine hurt. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "That depends on whether you and Mom can respect who I actually am, not just who you needed me to be for Heather's sake." I left him there, returning to my office with unsteady hands but a clear conscience. For the first time, I had spoken my truth without apology. That night, I added another dollar to the piggy bank on my windowsill, $1 for each week I had maintained my boundaries. $13 so far. Not financial wealth, but personal strength, the most valuable currency I had ever earned. In May, another challenge arrived, an invitation to my cousin Jessica's June wedding in Portland. The cream-colored envelope sat unopened on my counter for 3 days before I finally slid a finger across its embossed floral design. I thought carefully about my response. Jessica and I had been close as children, though we drifted apart as adults. After I left, she was one of the few relatives who reached out with kindness. She never pressured me to return or dismissed my feelings. Declining her wedding invitation felt wrong, but attending meant facing my family on their terms.